Welcome to the 26th episode of the One Shot Effect podcast. Today's guest, Clara Ritger. Welcome. She is a very fascinating writer. She's someone I met through Instagram in a way. I think I actually found you through Threads, I want to say. That's even a good starting point. What's been your experience with writing online?
Yeah, thanks for having me, by the way. And it was so nice to meet you on Threads or Instagram, one or both. I'm not even sure. My experience with meeting you in particular was that you somehow found my content and were such a champion of it immediately. So that was super cool. So thank you for that. And that was why I gave a very enthusiastic yes to the invite to be on the podcast. Um, I write a newsletter. It's called Adventure to Awaken. It comes out every Friday and it's free. And I love writing that newsletter. It brings me a lot of joy. I feel honestly as though if I could write the newsletter for the rest of my life and that was like all I did, I would die happy. So yeah, the experience of writing online in a newsletter format, which is like kind of somewhere in between short form and long form, I would say, has been great. A 5 minute, 8 minute read once a week, like is sort of like, it's almost like a little sermon, so to speak. I like don't know any other way to like compare it, right? But it's just like, here's 5 minutes of thoughts on life, and sending it out to people and getting a nice response. And so I started writing on Threads as well, honestly, as a way to grow the newsletter and also to break the newsletter down into bite-sized pieces of content. So that has been kind of a whole different game. I was a journalist right out of college, and in college as well. And that was the early days of Twitter. So I used to be on Twitter and then kind of got more into documentary film over the years. And so moved really away from the whole Twitter landscape. And then it got turned into X. And so Threads has kind of been this joyful rediscovery of what it felt like to be on Twitter 10 years ago. So that's been cool.
Yeah, my experience has been geotags are huge, which is like good for like localized things. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I think you've even done other things. There's other sub niches. Like for where I live, Cape Town, for example. It's like if you use the phrase Cape Town, it like boosts your post like 20 times and shows it to people in Cape Town, which is so cool and creates, I think, some localized community through social media, how it was meant to be.
Yes, it is interesting. It does feel like I hate to use the word like cheat codes because to be honest, if you were to ask me what the cheat codes are, I couldn't tell you. But it feels like that. Like every once in a while I stumble on it's like a phrase or something that the algorithm just picks up and pushes out to the world. And locations seem to be one of those things. Like I have been writing a lot in the newsletter about my experience in Uganda. And anytime I put on Threads something about Uganda, it seems to get all the people in Africa to this like post. Like tons of safari operators and tour operators in East Africa will comment like on that Threads.
That is so epic. Wow. That's like, and so many people don't even know about threads or like care about threads. Like, I don't know.
I know everybody thinks it's weird. It's like Threads feels like this weird community where the people who are on it are super passionate about it. And then everybody in real life who I talk to about it is like, why are you wasting your time on Threads?
Hello.
Hey.
Okay. We're back. We're winning. What's been your like journey with threads or just even social media in general? Like, how long have you been using Threads?
I started posting regularly on Threads in December. And I've been posting like 4 times a day, every day since December. So, yeah, I've definitely been posting a lot and
So
commenting and
everyone isn't
engaging.
posting enough. Anyone listening to this, you're not posting enough. People are being lazy. If you can do it, anyone can do it, right?
In fairness, I feel like I have a lot of thoughts. Like, I feel like at some point early on, I was kind of like, oh, I should post a lot. So I was trying to sort of come up with like things to post, or I would like turn my newsletter into like 12 posts or something. And I do way less of that now. Like, my newsletter is like maybe 3 posts. And like, I just have so many other thoughts that my whole like threads is just all these like random thoughts that I have. And sometimes ideas for future newsletters, like I'll kind of, and you'll see creators posting about this on threads as well, like stress test your ideas. They sort of say like, send them out on threads, see if you get like lots of response. And if you do, then turn it into a newsletter. I don't know that I'm super scientific with it yet, but yeah, sometimes it's like, oh, I should see what people have to think about this.
Yeah, it's a funny journey of like next, 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 next. But it's also like going at the pace of love and like enjoying the journey.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, I feel like social media is a challenging journey to enjoy. What do you think?
I think it's a spiritual journey. It's the mirror. I don't know. It's very interesting. But it's
Yeah,
so
what
for
say
me,
more?
what's so important is like eldership and like passing the torch to the next generation, which is like sharing authentically.
Oh, that's interesting. You feel like there's like almost a social responsibility to the way that we use it.
Well, yeah, but I think of that big in the South African context where like we have one of the highest screen times in the world, but also one of the highest unemployment rates. But that's like a whole different thing. That's kind of my entrepreneurship side of me, which is even you, I feel like, has had an entrepreneurial journey of sorts, and even just being a writer, which is being your own like cheerleader. Like no one's gonna like show your writing. Sure, you could sign with like a book label, but like you have to advertise yourself, and there is text like platforms as well.
Yes, yes. That stat that you just said is really interesting, though. So you're saying that South Africa has one of the highest screen times in the world and the lowest employment rates in the world. That's in,
Correlation
yeah,
and
and that's,
depression.
yeah.
There's some other ones, but yeah, I mean it's a very interesting country. I actually just was listening to a podcast. Jordan Peterson, he hosted someone, and they were speaking about South Africa's like current history and just like the recent
Mm.
history as well. Like even just Africa's history is so fascinating, but also like so recent in a lot of ways.
Are you
Nonetheless,
from South Africa? Where are you from?
I am actually. My mom's side is German, but yeah, I was born in South Africa. My parents were born in South Africa. What
Okay.
about you?
Born in the States, as you might be able to tell from the accent. And yeah, kind of lived all over the US actually. Grew up in California, went to college in the Midwest, most recently lived in New York City. So
What's been your experience in California and New York City?
I really loved growing up in California. I don't know that it is the same today as it was back then, if that makes sense. But, growing up in the 90s, it was in Surf City, USA. It was kind of a great place to be. And kind of had, I guess I would say, a similar experience in New York. I was in New York before, during, and after the pandemic. And I felt like New York really changed as a result of the pandemic. Like that pre pandemic New York was like maybe peak New York. I don't know. I think in general, the US is sort of going through a big like cost of living crisis. And I think people are feeling really overworked and burned out in a way that was almost exacerbated by the pandemic because they had nowhere to go. And even though people weren't commuting, I think a lot of people poured those extra hours into work, right? And I think a lot of people took on a lot more work. I think there was a lot of like economic shifts that happened, where companies tried to recoup the losses that they incurred during COVID by essentially making employees do more. And now with the return to work orders, I think people are really starting to question, like, what is this all for? Why am I doing this? In many ways, that was part of my story. I was freelancing. I had my own company, actually, a video production company in New York City. And the pandemic really shifted work for me. I was doing huge series for media companies, corporate clients, brands pre-pandemic. And though I had a decent number of clients, they say like you always want to diversify and not just have like one client. I would say I had 3 clients who were responsible for about 75% of the business revenue in 2019. And 2 of those 3 clients were laid off from their jobs as a result of the pandemic. So my entire business like shifted almost overnight. And I ended up taking a gig in television. I was working as like a field producer and cinematographer for a TV show. And then started doing a ton of work with financial companies, producing sort of these like remote updates on financial portfolios that they would normally, I guess, do in person to big investors, but now we're doing remotely, and just was working like around the clock. There was sort of like this big lull period at the beginning of the pandemic where there was no work. And then all of a sudden there was just like all of this work. And simultaneously was, overworking myself and dealing with health issues, and really just hit this point of burnout and was like, I can't live like this anymore. And I think that when I talk to a lot of people back in the States, I think a lot of people are pushing through burnout as well.
Do you think this is like a worldwide thing? Like also maybe at like a different level in the USA, or like in different places that you've been in?
It's really hard to say, right? Because I haven't been part of a workforce that isn't the United States workforce. So I think that when you're a tourist in different countries, I think it's like hard to tell. And maybe in some ways you have rose colored glasses, right? So I want to sort of check like my own biases here. But I will say that I do sort of get the sense that it is different elsewhere. That, and even on threads, like going back to threads, you'll see like people from Europe like posting with like, frankly, like disdain about the US like work culture and approach to vacation time. And yeah, I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time in Europe, but I did spend a lot of time in Australia and New Zealand. And, the joke I would tell people back in the US was like work-life balance isn't even a concept in Australia and New Zealand because there's nothing to balance. Life just is the priority, right? Like they don't have to worry about trying to balance it. Like the idea that work would come above everything else is like a US concept to them.
I think it's hugely linked to like the property crisis in just the world to me. Like that people are
Mm.
like it's like even more unrealistic than ever to own a home for a lot of people.
Frankly, that was part of the calculus for me of why I decided to travel the world. I was saving up, right, to buy property to be able to put a down payment on either an apartment in New York City, or if I was going to move out of New York City on something. I mean, no matter where I moved, it was probably still going to be a condo. And then COVID hit and property prices went through the roof. And all of a sudden, what was almost a down payment was like a third of what a down payment could be. And I looked at that money and I just was like, well, maybe we should just travel.
When was that?
I mean, for me, like that sort of burnout breakdown moment really happened at the end of 2021. In December
I feel
2021.
like similar to mine in a way, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
also like COVID, like time synchronicity.
Yeah. It was like coming out of COVID, but it was also like my health issues had, I think, sort of reached like a boiling point. I had a surgery in December of 2021. And
Sheesh.
yeah, and I had my first surgery in January of 2016. So it's like 6 years later, I was still having follow up procedures and surgeries like to address like issues with my body. And I think that was sort of a wake up call for me. I just thought, I mean, at this rate, I'm never going to make it to retirement. I don't have money to even like settle into a house. I'm working so hard and feeling just totally disconnected from the joy of living. Like I might as well just see the world before I die was kind of the thought process. And in the beginning of 2022, I started to put that really into motion. My lease was coming up for renewal in the spring. And so I was like, well, I won't, I won't renew my lease. I'll move out of New York City and we'll figure it out. And so I didn't actually end up leaving the US, like quitting work and leaving the US until June, like middle June of 2022.
Wow. So, like, leaving New York was quite a big step towards like nature or like exploring or like traveling. Like, what did it mean to you to leave New York?
I think in many ways I put the pieces in motion without maybe even fully processing the meaning or the impact of them until later. Um, Especially with New York. I think the decision to move out of my apartment in New York really was just financial, that it wasn't realistic. I don't think my landlords would not have let me sort of sublet the apartment indefinitely, I think was one sort of truism of that. And rent is just so high in New York that I it wasn't realistic to try to cover it, for any months where there might be gaps, like if they did let me sort of sublet the place, right? So I think I made the decision from a like, let's reduce all of the sort of financial outputs. Canceled all my subscriptions, like everything, like really I had health insurance and that was about it. um, And then only after the fact did I realize that I had really like left, right? And that New York is a pretty challenging place to move into and out of, as I actually wrote about in the newsletter. um, and and yeah, and that now it's really a place I go back to visit friends. But at some point on the journey, it became clear that it was no longer my home. And I think accepting that truth happened when I realized that in living an entire year, well, it was 15 months really, that was my sort of like adult gap year healing journey. And living that time from a place of what would make me feel good? Like, what would make me feel better in my body? What do I want to do? And just following that sort of intuitive knowing I wound up spending most of my nights in the mountains and hiking and in my tent and in nature. And in New York City, it's really hard to get into nature, you know?
Do you find a correlation between creative energy and your connection to nature?
Definitely. I wrote most of the memoir that I wrote in the mountains. So on the journey, I did heal, which feels like such a crazy thing to say after being sick for so long and not knowing what was wrong or why I was sick. I started to figure it out as I was traveling. And on the other side, I realized more people have to know about this. Um, it seemed so obvious to me once I had figured it out, right? Um, and it just sort of felt like, wow, I wish I had known this sooner. But as I was traveling around, it was strange because I started to do a lot of hiking. So I ended up hiking 5 of the big mountains in East Africa, 2 in Uganda, 1 in Kenya, and 2 in Tanzania, including Kilimanjaro. And while I was hiking, the the book just started to come to me. So it was like I knew what part one was. I remember distinctly, like in Uganda, and this was at the very beginning of the journey. But I just had this weird sensation, like that maybe I was going to be writing a book from this. And I knew what part one was, and like words and phrases started to come to me as I was hiking, and I would, because I was a little bit self-conscious with the guides, I would literally like walk and type in my like notes app on my phone to try to get the thoughts down as they would come. And then, yeah, pretty early on, the title of the book came to me. And that's just sort of how it kept happening, was all through Africa and Australia and New Zealand. As I was hiking, more and more pieces of the book sort of like came to me and became clear, and I would just write it down. And I would have these moments too on the journey where I would live through sort of an experience, and then I would realize, oh my gosh, that's totally a chapter in the book, right? And so as I just kind of continued to live, the whole thing started to take shape. And when I decided to actually sit down and write the book, I went to the mountains. And it's funny now because I look back on it and I'm like, oh, that's funny that that's like where I wanted to be. And it wasn't that like I knew, oh, well, I've been writing all these little notes while I've been hiking, so I must write this book in the mountains. It wasn't like that. It was just like I just wanted to go someplace that felt like a good writer's retreat for me. And in retrospect, I was like, wow, the entire book was written in the mountains, even the parts where
Yeah,
I was sitting at a
that's really
desk.
awesome. I feel like there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot more to be said there. Like, I mean, I feel like I say this to everyone, but I just honestly believe in YouTube, and like, I feel like you have such a like you have such a story to tell in so many different formats. But I mean, it's so cool to write things. I mean, that's like straight from the brain in a way. There's something
You think I
so
should get on
awesome
YouTube?
about it. I don't know. I think everyone should, but like less is more. Doing whatever feels right and stuff. I mean, even podcasts are awesome. So there's no right or wrong. It's whatever feels right, right?
No, I ask because I've been thinking about expanding sort of my output. I like now that I'm starting to sort of get the newsletter and threads under my belt. I have some ideas for like a YouTube series and some ideas for like a podcast, but I think I can't do both. So I'm trying to sort of pick like which one do I want to go for. So I like hearing other people's like,
Why
you
can't you
should do
do
a
both?
podcast or you
You
should.
can do anything.
So eventually, yes, but I think I don't have the bandwidth to do both right now, right? Like I think I got to pick one right now and then add on the next
You
one.
also just don't have to overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, what's even awesome is like I'll record a lot of videos that I don't even share. And then those are like end up being just like a journal of sorts, right? I mean, I suppose that's even a great question, is like, how do you balance like public writing versus private writing?
Yes. So that's such a great question. All of my writing for the longest time was private, right? And and it's funny because I do have multimedia ways of recording stories like for myself. So it's like it's so funny. It's like I when people ask, if I'm a content creator, I'm like, yeah, I'm a content creator, but I'm not a content sharer. um, so I recorded, I would record like moments of me crying early on, like going sort of through some of the big emotions that came with leaving because I wanted to remember that for myself, like gosh, and I could even like cry thinking about it now, but like, I think I just had this sense that what I was going through was so big, right? For me, like and I wanted to be able to remember it and like track where I was down the line, and just hold on to those emotions that I felt and not lose sort of that humanity with myself. So I have that. I've got like voice notes I would record to myself, like when I was hiking alone. Voice notes are much easier than typing into your notes app. Um, and then my journals. I have this like video actually of like the 13 moleskin notebooks that I've like filled over the last, it actually might even be more than 13, but over the last like 8 years. And writing the memoir was going through. Yes, moleskin can take all my money. They're so nice to write in. It's like, oh, anyway. Yeah, so I had to go reread my journals. I reread all of my journals twice just to figure out like where the story was. And and this is basically how the newsletter started. There was so much quality writing that ended up on the cutting room floor that it was like, this is great writing and great travel writing specifically, but it's not totally going to fit into sort of the arc of the memoir. That I looked at it and I was like, I literally have enough to share for a year. So I should probably just start a weekly newsletter and start sharing these stories. And of course, as I've started to write the newsletter, new writing has come to me. So what was like a year's worth of content to start? I mean, I haven't written them all out. Like I don't have like a year's worth of newsletter scheduled. I just, have stories that I'm like, oh, I can write this one, I can write this one, whatever. But I've already started writing new stuff as well. So I think if I were to like look back at this sort of like list of stories I have in the bank, I probably now have like a year and a half or 2 years worth. So yeah, I mean, I think balancing public and private really for me, to sort of go back to your question, is that it all starts private for me. And I think there's usually some time, not always. Like sometimes I write pretty fresh and just put it in the newsletter pretty fresh now. But I think especially with some of the more emotional writing, there is some time in between when it is written and when I look at it again and decide, is this worthy of public consumption, whether that is like, was it written well, or can I rewrite it well, or is this useful to somebody to read? Like, would they be interested in this piece of the journey?
How do you decide what people would be interested in? And do you like, how do you balance what people are interested in versus what you feel like called to share? Or like what you're interested in sharing?
If I'm being honest, I there's a lot of advice online from people who I think are known as famous LinkedIn writers or famous X writers, right? About like the formula that you should use that people want, like to drop knowledge on people or whatever. I probably don't put enough time into that. Like, if I'm being honest, I'm probably sharing a lot more of what I want to share and I'm probably not doing enough thinking about, like, is this what people want to read? Um, so is that right? I don't know. But I think I've been a storyteller for so long that I think I have decent taste for what makes a good story. And I think I'm sort of just leaning into that right now, where I'm just sort of saying, like, I think this is a good story, and, or I think this is well written or well told. I'm going to put that out there. And is that enough to make this sort of a career? I don't know. I hope so, because this definitely brings me lots of joy. But and I will say, like, the people who read the newsletter seem to really like it. It's just we don't have that many readers right now. So looking to
But I
looking to
mean, it's also
expand.
seeing like the value in every single connection, right? And like taking each kind of viewer seriously in a way and like answering DMs, responding to comments. I don't know how you feel with that, but I mean, like it's easy to like see the bigger numbers, but it's like building community is the hard part. Like you look at, I mean, for me it's big like to look at musicians, like that's really creating community in such a crazy way. Like you have to bring all those people, and they often bring those people to like venues, concerts. So it's like a geographical like thing to that, whereas you have it's like a virtual place, which is like your email list, or I mean even like your Instagram followers or whatever. And even a good question would be like, how much is it like, are you sharing to friends or is it like strangers? Like, who's usually like consuming, and does that like, I don't know, does that like mean anything to you, or would you share
It's
differently to like friends and family?
not anymore. I think it's so funny. I think something of a huge transformation I've gone through, and maybe this is just a result of writing the memoir, um, is like the dirty laundry is hung out to dry at this point. Like once that memoir is out there, it is out there. Like it is a level of truth telling that I think would scare most people. Yeah. But I think that's what makes the memoir impactful is it is a very raw and honest look at the experiences that I have been through, particularly in the last 10 years, and my thoughts. And there are definitely yeah, there's definitely many stories in the memoir that I think most people close to me don't know. And or maybe that some people know some and some people know others and whatever, but it'll all sort of be out there when the memoir gets out there. But Threads right now, I think, is a lot of strangers. And um, Threads, I would say, is like feels a little more challenging for me in terms of community building than the newsletter. So I think, what you touched on, like sort of that personal interaction with each individual, it's so much easier to have that with my newsletter subscribers because I send out this really vulnerable piece of writing and then they just email me back like with their response to it, or some people will DM me on Instagram and be like, wow, this newsletter was so powerful. Like, wow, I can't like wait to read your memoir, or wow, this is what this brought up for me. And then it's easy for me to respond to sort of, it's like I've shared something personal, they've shared sort of the reflection of the impact that had on them, and I'm sort of able to respond back, and we're able to have that sort of personal interaction.
I
And
mean, there's even something there from a point of like, not to interrupt, but
no, yeah.
like even like it's like a testimonial, it's like a review, it's like an opportunity for you to see a mirror, but maybe to you that's the reward in a sense. Is that something that you keep to yourself? Like how much does the feedback influence the art?
Not at all. Actually, I have been asking for feedback to influence the art. I've been like, tell me what you want. Like, I'm just like, nope, I'm just, people are like, you just keep doing you. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm just going to keep doing me. And you guys will seem to like what I'm putting out. But, yeah, it's not influencing it at all. And definitely I love hearing from readers like the impact that it has on them, because otherwise you feel like you're just like screaming into a void, right? And and I would say on Threads that like you sometimes get those personal interactions, but you get a lot more of sort of like the random like one word comments, right? And so in that way, those are harder. I do try to respond to anybody who has like commented something of sort of substance under my threads. I will respond to. Sometimes people will ask questions. I love answering questions. Like, I actually love having that interaction. It's just there's like on threads, it's like more surface level, whereas like with the newsletter, it's like a little more meaty.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, I try and be like personal with like even my Instagram story. Like I love to do like polls. I love to do
And then
yeah,
like four
questions as
people
well.
respond to your poll, right? Like, I don't know,
Bro,
maybe you get
it's
more.
really like it's really rough, bro. You see how like deep people are in brain rot. People just want to watch reels. They don't want to have a conversation. Nah, I
Oh
didn't
my
pick up
God.
Instagram to have a conversation. This shit is my entertainment. This is my cartoons for the day.
I mean, but it's
That's how I feel
dissociation.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people are willingly
But people
using
love to like
Instagram to
support
dissociate.
like people love to support like a celebrity. Yeah, let's go to the cinemas. But like people don't want to support like their own communities. But that's a over. I'm being controversial.
Say
I'm
more,
starting
say
a
more.
conversation. I think community is so important. That's why I'm really passionate about live streaming. To be honest, like it's that one
Mm.
step further than short form video. But the thing is, it actually builds something like the same way that long form does, like a podcast or like YouTube videos that are 10 minutes. Like you can actually get to know someone in that. Or like a whole memoir. That's like a very deep thing. Sure, most people won't read that. Most people won't be interested. It's not for them. Great. Like some people only have that 5 seconds attention span. And that's where they're at. So it's also like for me, it's like reach people where they are. So it's like I even believe you should be posting to TikTok. Like there's people who don't even know that they're missing out on reading like a whole memoir. They don't even know that's something they would enjoy, but like they think that like the satisfaction is like going on to TikTok. And like young kids, that's what I'm very passionate about. Is like young children's dependence on social media in this day and age, like connected to post COVID, connected to overworked parents who are like, I don't have someone to take care of my kid. Here's an iPad. Here's a phone. Like and like the rise of TikTok, like a Chinese owned social media, which is interesting even in the South African context. In a way, the Chinese own a lot of South Africans' attention because people aren't working, people aren't da, 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 da. But I mean, even just in a global sense, like social media and data, and I mean now that we talk about AI as well, but then we also go like they are the third place. They are that third space that is missing so commonly in person. But there is like a gap that needs to be bridged, I think. But it depends how you use it. Like nowadays we get like local coffee shops trying to use it, but it's I don't know. I mean, like who should be having an email list? Like maybe everyone. I'm even thinking maybe I should have one for my like hiking group and hiking guiding and like tell hiking stories and like maybe everyone has a story to tell. And like whether it's even just for their friends and family or public or just for themselves, like just a practice that maybe anyone could take part in.
I mean, I do fundamentally believe that everyone does have a story to tell. I worked in documentary film for 10 years, and it was my job to find the story that people had to tell, right? And that was so fulfilling in many ways because I would meet people who maybe didn't think that they had a story worth telling. And by virtue of sort of sitting with them for hours or even days, right, filming this documentary and interviewing them, they were receiving sort of that attention that maybe they didn't have. Like they were like, oh, wow, like I'm worthy of being seen, right? Um, and I think even people who knew they had a story to tell, it was actually quite fulfilling to then, receive the emails from them after the documentary would come out. Because for me, I always edited the documentary with like a very small audience in mind. Let's say there was like 4 people in the documentary, right? Those were the 4 people I was editing the documentary for. Like I wanted them to watch the documentary and walk away being like, yes, she really captured my story, right? And that was a success for me, not what the audience thought, but what the audience of four, right, of the people who were in it thought. And that was fulfilling too, right? Was I think to receive sort of the feedback from people that, I had helped them sort of understand how to tell their story better, right? Through the editing process, and pulling it. And that's really the shift that happened for me, like in the last couple of years, was I realized like I had spent a decade, behind the camera telling other people's stories. And now I was turning the camera on myself.
I think that is very important. Like even my journey, like I've hosted this podcast, this is the 26th episode, but it's like it's easier to host a podcast and like a guest, but it's hard to tell my own story in an hour, or my like a solo podcast is a different challenge, but it's like even a solo like in any personal brand or like writing capacity, sometimes it's almost easier to write for clients or write for like I don't know. There's a lot of people have to like write for work, but then they might not write for themselves. I don't know.
Is there anything that you feel like you've wanted to share with people, but you haven't like quite found the words or the platform for it yet?
I think for me it's been like this recent passion for like hiking guiding and like how nature's like played a big role in like my healing journey or just like my life journey. And like yeah, I feel like just been in digital work since like 2018 and the whole like digital sphere and just kind of like realizing the like negatives of like the laptop dream in a way and like just become a bit disillusioned with like digital work in some ways, but also seeing that it's for me what excites me is to bridge the gap, like use social media to grow like a hiking group or a running club or a coffee shop or like build community as well and like third spaces. But that's where podcasts excite me as well. So yeah, there's a lot to be excited by. That's just like they're all
You
tools.
would
It's just how
love
you use it.
Bali.
I've been. My dad lives there. I went there for 2 months. It was interesting. I feel like it could
I
be
mean,
good for meeting guests. That's for sure.
great for meeting guests, but also it's everything that you just described. It's a lot of people who are using social media to then build real life gatherings. I'm curious, I guess, about your sort of healing journey and your relationship with hiking and nature.
um, yeah, just it's like I think nature became my studio in a big way, and like it's always I think I've always felt more inspired in nature than like the basement. Like I don't know when I even think of like musicians, like oh the drummers are practicing in the garage like that. This wasn't as inspiring to me as like singing with the birds, thinking with the birds, like with the fresh air, with the sunshine, like and like for me it's like in a way it's actually earning that energy to then share, but it's like it fulfills my cup and then I'm like, why is no one here? Like no one's in nature. Everyone's in the shopping malls. Oh, they're on TikTok, right? They're on social media. So then I want to like create from there and like reach people where they are in a way to like come back to like nature's the answer. It's not about what I'm saying. It's about where I'm saying it from and like my perspective and like understanding that like who will understand that will understand that. So like it's also a journey for me of like not begging for people's attention and like I've done hyper edited short videos before. Like I did like a weight loss transformation that got like 200,000 views. And like I know I can do that, but I don't want those people who are only wanting to watch like a hyper edited thing. It's also like about not discriminating for me. It's like who it's meant to see will see it how it's meant to be seen. Like maybe they don't want the hyper edit. But like not saying is there something wrong with it. It's just understanding the tools of like I don't know. But I think it's also a balance of like being seen and like privacy, and it's like privacy is a luxury, and like showing it to who you want, how you want, and that's part of the artistry that I think you can relate to. Have you experimented with short video at all?
Well, so I mean, working in documentary for like a decade, I would say that most of the projects I was working on were short form. Um, I would say that a lot of them sort of fell in the like 5 to 10 minute range. So more like short form in the context of YouTube as opposed to short form in the context of like TikTok, right? But did create a decent number of like Instagram reels and TikToks, like as you know, just the nature of the work and over the years. But I haven't experimented with it at all, really, in terms of like myself as a brand, which like, oh God, I feel like I want to like hurl just saying that. It's like, but I mean, it's the reality, I think, of being a writer and a storyteller in
CVs are
2025.
gone.
Yeah,
Social media is the new CV.
that's an interesting perspective. Yeah, I mean, social media. If you have a good social media, it can certainly replace the CV, right? For certain jobs.
Yeah, I think especially like visual artists, definitely. Musicians is an interesting one, but I mean that's kind of it feels like a rare case. What's been your experiences? Like, what kind of writers had you come across? Like, well, who inspires you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. Interestingly, I would probably actually say that the writers I'm most inspired by are book authors. So I guess in some ways it's not that surprising that that's what I ended up doing. Um, but in terms of social media, I mean, I'm a classic millennial. I came up in the Instagram age, and there was a period of time where there were many writers who would literally just share a quote on a colorful background, or you know, in some sort of stylization that represented their brand, right? And that performed very well for many years on Instagram. It doesn't now. I actually was thinking about this the other day, about how in the last just couple of years the entire algorithm has shifted to where writers I follow on Instagram I never see anymore. Like you almost never see those quote posts anymore. You see like carousels with like business tips, right? But you don't really just see like a good, powerful quote or piece of writing on a colorful background. That's like disappeared.
It's almost like so like as social medias age, they can basically be less pro user and more pro advertiser. Because at first they need to be pro user to get all the users. Now you get greedy companies like Facebook. We already have a billion, 2 billion users. We literally had to go to African countries to bring internet connection to find more users. That's how many people use
Is
social
that what
media
they
these
did?
days. Or I mean, how else do you increase your customer base when you've got like most of the developed world?
I mean, no, I
That's
think
crazy.
that's like I have not, I don't
I
know. I
mean,
haven't
even
read
like
anything about
Elon
that.
Musk and bringing Starlink to remote tribes, like that's an interesting new users that are on the internet, which is also people that are
Mm.
new on potential things like threads or whatever. I mean, it's interesting, like the benefits of social media and how much more connected our world is. But it's also like, that's why it's so important to be clear with how you're writing and thinking. And that's why people need to learn from you and definitely need to follow you. But I'm also just curious how you're doing on time because I still want to be mindful of that.
Oh yeah. Like 15, 20 more minutes is fine for me. Yeah.
Cool. We definitely got to talk about your marathon. So maybe we should get to that and talk about backpacking Africa.
Yeah, sure. Um, I mean, we can start with the backpacking Africa since we're sort of already on that topic a little bit. It was really interesting at the beginning of this conversation to hear you say that that statistic about screen time and employment, because that was certainly sort of an anecdotal observation that I had made while I was in Africa. Um, and yeah, I guess it's just interesting to hear that actually backed up by some statistics. Um, I think most people don't realize like how ubiquitous the smartphone is in Africa. I think they get a very different picture of what Africa is from non-governmental organizations and other nonprofits. And that just isn't the case. Africa is so connected. And, many kids, it seemed, were learning English from YouTube as opposed to in school, right? And and I think that that comes with some challenges because I think some kids see things on YouTube and think, because YouTube doesn't feel like television feels like celebrities and YouTube can sometimes feel like it's everyday people. I think people watch YouTube and think that the world is very different than maybe it is, if that makes sense. Like I met a lot of African kids who from watching YouTube felt as though, well, if I move to the US, like I'll instantly have like nice cars and girls and money. And it was like, oh, the person you're watching on YouTube has those things because they're an influencer, but that's not what the entire United States is like, right? And so it's just sort of warped sort of the view of the world. And I think one of the challenges with that is it warps their view of themselves in many ways because now the context in which they live has shifted. They see
They're lacking
themselves.
reputation around them. And almost it
Yeah,
actually brings me back to your point on threads. Like it almost to me is almost a supply and demand. Like and I feel like social media is taking this bigger step into localized content. And I actually noticed it hugely in South Africa, where South African YouTube channels used to struggle. And now they're like, because YouTube's realizing people need and want, like Google is just like, why wouldn't we show people in South Africa South African content that's relevant to them? But that's still a modern evolving thing, and there's still a huge consumption of American media and like yeah, just America's hold of the world and like perspective as well.
definitely, definitely. Do you think that the shift is a result of TikTok?
Oh, TikTok has its own bubble, but there's bubbles everywhere, like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. Every single social media obviously has its own like algorithms and way that they handle content. Like there's obviously ways around that. Sure, VPNs maybe. I mean, I know a bigger way around it is using a SIM card. That's something I actually learned. I met a influencer in Bali, a Canadian influencer, and he was saying like how like especially with short form videos like TikTok, and that's why they're so localized. Is they use your SIM card. They read what like provider you have to know exactly where you are, which is also like a data concern, but
Right,
nonetheless.
right. Yeah, I mean, data and privacy has really gone out the window across the board, right?
True. What can you say about meditation?
Well, I mean, for me, meditation really changed my life. Um, I, I think I was aware, I think probably as many people are, it's like you're aware of the benefits of meditation, but for some reason, getting from 0 to 1, like getting from not meditating to starting to meditate is such a hard shift for people to make. And that was myself included. Um, I, dabbled in group meditations over the years, like went to different events and things. I even took a meditation class, but I didn't actually start meditating every day until I took this like adult gap year to travel the world and heal. And once I started meditating every day, it was like this huge awakening for me of what the experience was like to live in my body. Um, just how I think stressed and chaotic I felt. And I realized like the benefits of meditation when you're meditating, you sit down, meditate 5, 10, 20 minutes. For me, it was 20 minutes every day was sort of the commitment I made to myself. It wasn't that I was getting so much out of it in those 20 minutes as I was getting out of it in the rest of my day because of those 20 minutes. Like it was all of a sudden I had more mindfulness about the way I was like brushing my teeth or the way I was like eating breakfast or washing dishes. I would just catch myself in the middle of a task with this like, my shoulders like up to my ears, like tense, like, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, why do I feel stressed right now? There's like no reason to like move through the day with such stress. And I think that realization of the pervasiveness of like stress in my body was this like aha light bulb moment of like, well, no wonder I was sick. Because for me, a lot of my issues were digestive, like gastric issues. And it's like, well, it's so obvious now. Like when I think about it, it's like, well, what are you doing when you're in fight or flight mode? Like, what are you not in? You're not in rest and digest mode. It's like, I had gastric issues because I was never allowing my body to even like go through that like natural process, right? I was just constantly in fight or flight. So yeah, I mean, for me, meditation was huge. And that's one of the reasons I am getting certified as a meditation teacher right now, because I am really interested in sort of the broader, I think, topic of trauma healing. For me, I had many physical issues for many years. And when I look at, people in the US or even around the world who are also struggling with like long-term, like chronic illnesses, or diagnoses or even if it's just stress for them, right? There's so many health issues that are directly linked to stress, like heart issues and ulcers and right. And if we started to actually heal from trauma, I wonder how many other people would experience the alleviation of those physical health issues. And so, I'm now a trauma-informed coach. I'm a certified trauma-informed coach and getting certified as a meditation teacher because I'm starting to explore like how can I, through my story and through the work that I've been doing for myself, sort of offer more knowledge and resources to people who need it, right? To people who maybe can't do the thing that I did and give up their life and travel the world for 15 months in search of healing, right? Like I was very lucky, that I was sort of found myself in a set of circumstances where I was able to sort of make that happen. But let's say you're a mom and you have kids, like you're not going to be able to just be like, see you later. Like I'm going to go heal myself. Like how do we get healing to them, right? They need it too. And so I think sort of trying to start to answer that question for myself. But yeah, I mean, gosh, if there's like anything I would encourage anybody to do, after this podcast, it's like start meditating like 5 minutes a day, listen to download Insight Timer. There's plenty of like free guided meditations on there. Just start to explore that and see what maybe it offers for you.
I love that. I love that. And I think even like checking out Clara's social media as well. And would you ever be doing like online coaching calls? Someone that I'm super inspired by is a guy named Mike Posner. He hosts weekly Zoom calls, where it actually has a bit of a group coaching element to it. I think you'd find it interesting. It's Thursday like midnight for my time, so I struggle to attend it. But for you, it would probably be easier with American time. He's an American singer. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah. No, I know he pops up on social media now. He's been through like a
He does good
whole
with the social media
journey.
thing, bro. He's hitting the
Yeah.
algorithm.
He
He's
hits the
telling that
algorithm like
authentic
pretty
story, bro.
regularly. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. I'll definitely have to check him out. And yeah, I
Maybe attend
mean,
one of those Zoom calls one day, just out of interest. I don't know if that would ever interest you. Like that's like live, but that's more like group coaching in like a virtual setting. Maybe that could be something you could explore in person as well. Or would you feel? I don't know. But I'm just curious, just throwing ideas.
no, it's a great question. I mean, look, I think I would get into if people were like, "Hey, like I think you could help me. Like, would you want to coach me?" I would, certainly consider doing that. Like I think if there's like demand, like perhaps perhaps that's something to get into for sure. But for me, right, so I have the newsletter and I wrote the book. I definitely have plans to write another book. But in terms of like how am I going to use sort of the trauma informed coaching and the meditation teacher training, I've always sort of envisioned like the next sort of phase of the Adventure to Awaken offering as being these like in-person 1 week retreats where, I sort of present to everyone like, here's the poo-poo platter, right? Of like everything that you could, every modality, everything that you could integrate into your life, right? To help you sort of get back into alignment with your body.
Mm,
We're going to explore them all over the course of this week. And I'm going to sort of take you through like, here's, the journaling, the, self-talk, the meditation, breath work, everything. Right. And then at the end of the week, like we're going to sit down and make like a real plan for what feels like was A, the most beneficial for you, and B, things that you feel like you can commit to integrating like in your life back home. Right. So offering these sort of retreats that allow people to sort of get a taste of like, okay, these are small shifts that I can start to make in my life, to feel more joy, to feel more connected, more, with my loved ones and with myself. Because I think
mm,
for me, when I look back on my own journey and story, it's, the reason that I sort of had to blow everything up and start all over again was because I got, I sort of got around to it too late, right? Everything kind of blew up and was sort of a catastrophe by the time I actually realized like that, I needed to heal. But if I had started making small shifts like years prior, maybe who knows, maybe I would still, be in New York doing what I was doing, right? But
facts.
in many ways it's good that I didn't, because I sort of found this other purpose. But yeah, if any, I am working on right now actually building a resource for people to do a self-guided retreat. So, you know, down the line, I would love to be offering guided retreats. But in the meantime, if you are interested in doing your own sort of self guided mini retreat, I'm putting together a resource that, like a PDF that, like, here's how you can do it for less than $500. Right? Like, here's a guide for how to find a destination to sort of take yourself, like to get out of your house, like whether that's, in your town or, coming out to Bali, whatever, it can look like anything for you. Here is sort of a guide for how to do it and get started. Like that's sort of like a small step one toward your healing journey. So, yeah, if you sign up for the newsletter through this podcast, I will let you know as soon as that resource is ready.
Yeah. How long has your email list actually been going out of connection to that? But maybe not the most interesting question.
No, sure. It's since November. So there's actually, I've been posting weekly since November. So there's actually like 20 or something, more than 20 posts up now, which is super exciting. And I definitely have some weeks where I'm like, gosh, am I going to be able to like top myself? Like there's definitely some weeks that like the writing I think is really like quite good, and I'm like, part of me like worries. I'm like, wow, am I just like putting it all out there like too soon? But who knows? I'm just doing it. I'm just like, well, this is what I want to write about this week, so here goes. But yeah, so I mean, if you're interested in sort of the perspective and wisdom that I've gained through healing and through this journey around the world, the newsletter is definitely a great place to start.
Awesome. Yeah, I've actually hosted a email list myself, but I never got too consistent with it. But I just sent you two names on Instagram. Like one
Oh,
of my
thank
biggest
you.
goals is to be a connector, and just like these two people kind of resonate with you. The first one's actually my stepmother. She's a like a health coach based in Bali, and I just feel like her writing is interesting. I feel like that's kind of what you're saying. She's kind of being like held back by the whole algorithm, and like it's like she kind of should probably be on threads, but she probably just doesn't know about it. You know what I mean? Or like even Paige, but Paige, she's big on LinkedIn. That's her thing. So
Oh,
I mean,
cool.
you'd be even curious your thoughts of LinkedIn. She's big on getting light workers onto LinkedIn, and she does like cohorts and women only, like writing empowerment kind of stuff. She's actually based in Cape Town, but she is American, and I'm actually going to be having her on the podcast hopefully this week, and hopefully we're going to record it in nature, which is exciting.
Oh, that would be a dream, honestly, recording. I love the sounds of nature. It would be such a dream to record in nature. So that's going to be such a great episode. But yeah, no, I actually know like one of the original like LinkedIn like creators, like in terms of like content creators, not like he didn't create LinkedIn. But anyway, and he has like hundreds of thousands of followers on LinkedIn. I mean, it's definitely a great, like, if you're looking to connect with the business audience, that's definitely a great platform to do that. I think I haven't totally, I think I probably should post on LinkedIn.
Should is a tricky word.
Should is a
Should.
tricky word. And then the reason I'm like, oh gosh, I think, I think I'm still sort of figuring out with how to
But
sort
like,
of
if only
share
it
my
was so
story.
easy to like automatically post what you're posting to Threads to LinkedIn, and maybe even having a conversion process. And I mean, now when we got AI in the future, is it just automatically going to make that into a short form video for you? Like, how far does it go? But then
Yes.
it's also keeping it less is more, and it's like, oh, this platform resonates with you. Cool. I mean, my stepmother and her like her writing journey was through Facebook groups. There's just so many different ways.
Yes. And the thing is like, you really have to tailor your message to the audience that's there, right? So it's like if I were to start posting
You
on LinkedIn,
have
like I
to, or you should, or
like, but
have you noticed differences if you don't do or you don't? And
yeah, it just like falls on deaf ears, right? It's like I would need to be posting probably almost exclusively about like burnout on LinkedIn, right? Cuz like people are there probably like are burned out. Right? It's like that's the work culture.
yeah,
But yeah, I
burnout
haven't
is
figured out
very
Facebook
real.
either.
Yeah, it feels like that boat has sailed, but it's kind of like what I was telling you, right? So when social media is young, it has to be super pro user, which is kind of how I see TikTok nowadays. They give a lot of growth. It's easy to get views. It's all about views. But it's like then like Facebook's kind of like you have to pay to like really be seen. Even Instagram, I it feels like it. I mean, I've had pretty decent exposure on Instagram. Like I've had some short form videos go viral ish, like hundreds of thousands of views. But it's yeah, it's I don't know. It does kind of feel like even that it's kind of drip feeding you, and it has to kind of keep the people posting addicted and the consumers addicted. So it is a balance of like advertiser to like authenticity. I don't know if that's maybe just cynical.
No, no. I mean, it is the platforms are designed for addiction. That is definitely the design. I mean, they want you to spend more time on the platform, so they are trying to figure out how to get you to do that, and that's why they're constantly sort of posting. Like you'll see the Threads guy get on Threads all the time and like tell people like how to do Threads better. It's like because they want more people to go viral. They want more people like to have more reasons to like stay on platform.
Yeah, it's interesting to be aware of this. It's interesting to be a creator in this day and age.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm
But
for
with
sure.
such
I
an
mean,
important message like meditation and writing.
Yeah.
Does it feel like a duty in a way, or it feels like you're ready to share, or why now? I guess the timing thing as well, and why how you do it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't think that I would do it if it didn't bring me joy, if that makes sense. So, like writing the memoir and writing the newsletter like came from this deep place of like purpose. Like I really felt connected to like this is a story that I want to tell, like poured my sort of heart and soul into the telling of the story. And I think that social media is feels more of a duty in some ways. Like it feels almost like marketing, right? That's what I would say is the difference. For me, it's like the creation is in the book and in the newsletter, and social media is the marketing of those other things, right? That I don't necessarily get on social media because like I'm inspired to create a reel for Instagram, right? It's like I'm inspired to share my story with people, like the lessons that I've gained like along the way. And if I have to meet them where they're at, that means I have to meet them on social media, right?
Facts.
Yeah.
Is there any questions you wish I would have asked, or any things you feel left untouched? But I feel like we could do like 20 podcasts and still have things to say.
I know, seriously, there's so much to talk about. Um, no, I don't know that there's anything else that is like, oh, we absolutely have to talk about this. I would just say, like, anybody listening, if you are interested in connecting with me, my newsletter is adventuretoawaken.com. It'll
We'll
be
put the
in the
link.
podcast description. And I'm on Instagram and Threads as my first and last name at Clara Ritger, which will also be in that podcast description. And yeah, I mean, if any of this resonates with you, whether that's healing from chronic illnesses, trauma, interested in meditation, you name it, writing a book, creative endeavors, feel free to reach out to me. As we talked about, I love connecting with people and helping in any way that I can. So yeah, let me know how I can be of service and journey on.
Oh, that's very beautiful. One thing I actually wanted to add on, just like for me, like it's so important to just be that connector and like just share like what comes to mind. Like there's this incredible organization called the Art of Living. They do like meditation, life philosophy, light yoga. It's quite big even in South Africa, but even in across the world. But they teach like a breathwork technique, the Sudarshan Kriya. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I'm not sure if I've heard of that particular breathwork technique, but
But
I've heard
there's
of this
so many
organization.
different incredible breathworks.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, maybe in any go-to meditation techniques for you, or just like what's that journey been? But for me, like even Vipassana has been interesting, and then Art of Living, if it does cross your path, do recommend it.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I will definitely look into Art of Living. Yeah, no, look, I mean, I think that the best way to meditate is the way that works for you, right? And I think that there's so much like mythology around meditation that I think makes it feel like ethereal and mysterious, right? To people, they're like, well, I don't even know how to meditate. And like, it's really, very simple. You just close your eyes and observe your thoughts. And that is it, right? You just breathe. You just give yourself a moment to check in with yourself. And that is meditation, you know? Meditation can be watching a sunset without needing to be on your phone while doing it, right? Without needing to comment, wow, that's an amazing sunset. Just observing and witnessing life and your experience of life as it is meditation. But yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I am going through meditation teacher training. So if you are interested in learning meditation, You can also reach out to me, through Instagram threads or through the newsletter. Literally, if you just reply to a newsletter, like just I can reply right back to you. I'm so happy to help.
That's so awesome. Yeah, that's one of the coolest things about email lists for real. It has that like one step more personal than Instagram or something. But anyways, I think that's a great note to end on. Meditation. And like exactly, there's no right or wrong way to meditate. I mean, even for me, I think it's going into nature, even like walking meditation, like being so mindful with every step, even every breath, right? Everything that our senses touch, see, hear, taste.
Yes, and that's really like at the heart of my journey, right? Was in healing, on the other side of healing, what I got was this appreciation again for life that I had just lost. And that's what sort of the tagline of the newsletter is. It's where travel meets transformation. It's about finding yourself and reclaiming your joy.
Thank you. Thank you for the. How did an hour and 17 minutes go by already?
I know, seriously. Thank you so
Time
much for having me on
flies.
the podcast. It was so nice.
Thank you. It's been an interesting journey. It's been an interesting journey. 26 episodes in. I worked with a newspaper before, but now I get to work with awesome writers like you.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, I didn't even know you worked in journalism. That's amazing.
Yeah, let me click stop recording and then we can talk a little bit afterwards as well. But thank you
Yeah.
everyone for watching and check the links and all that good stuff.